All right, welcome back to another episode of We All Speak in Poems. Today I'm sitting down with Shaan Chhadva, who creates music as Scayos, Ornithology, and B9. In this episode, Shaan shares his journey as a musician and a producer. He discusses how he started playing music and making beats, and his experience at music school. We also chat about his album Picture Frames, which was created with a unique approach of recording in one take, without any edits or overdubs, in order to emphasize the value of embracing imperfections and letting go of the need of perfection. He discusses his philosophy on releasing music and the importance of valuing success beyond streaming numbers. Shaan also shares his excitement for upcoming projects, including a piano and ambient album, and a bunch of collaborative albums. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. All right. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Like, we've known each other for almost a year and a half or so and been working together pretty much that whole time as well. But I feel like I only really know like the bullet points of your history as like a sort of musician and producer. If we could start from the start, how exactly did you start playing music, making music? How did you get into music?
For sure, man. So I feel like realistically, like my journey started at like 5 years, if you want to go to like the very start. Yeah. My parents put me in like a piano class, like they often, do, and I absolutely hated it. It was like the worst thing I had to do every week. I like never practiced. I never wanted to do anything. I had like this like old mean lady teaching me like classical piano, and like was like angry all the time. And I was like constantly just like on the fence and just like did not like music at all until about like 6th or 7th grade, like middle school, when me and my friends used to listen to like a lot of like EDM music. It was like the cool thing back then. And it was like a lot of like David Guetta, Hardwell, just like rave stuff. Avicii was coming up. This was like 2011, 2012. And I was just like, okay, I gotta fucking be cool. So I started like DJing. That was like my thing for a bit when I was like 12. And that kind of led me to this like rabbit hole of production and music and all that stuff. And like immediately when I first started, I was like, this is just like what I'm gonna do, I guess now. It was like my identity for a while, for a bit. And the deeper I started going in like the rabbit hole, the more I was like, maybe I should learn piano. Maybe I should learn these tools that would make me a better producer so I could be a better DJ. Because I was like, do I just want to keep playing like other people's music? Do I want to like make my own music? So I was trying to figure that out. So that's when I started like practicing piano a lot, picked up drums a little bit, started playing bass, started playing a little bit, some instruments, like started going to like some classes, started making music on my own. I had a cracked version of Logic Pro 9 on my mom's computer that I used to use. And used to always crash. I used to like never be able to save projects and stuff. But I don't give a fuck because I was just like putting loops together, chopping that up, using like MIDI for a lot of my things. Only Logic stock instruments for the first like couple of years. And then I was like around 12, 13, 14 years old when I started doing it like quite intensely. Started playing piano a lot more. I knew I wanted to do music. I knew I wanted to study music abroad, or at least leave India at the time to pursue what I wanted to do. And I feel like Berkeley College of Music was like a big like goal from like the very start for me, where like whenever I used to look up like, oh, how do I become like a musician, or how can I do it? Because none of my family like knew anything about music. I was kind of like the odd one out. I was just like, okay, I guess I have to go to school for this. I guess I have to like, do all these things. And for the type of music that I was making, like more modern sounding stuff instead of like classical conservatory type stuff, Berkeley was the main one. Berkeley College of Music was like the one that everybody wanted to like go to. So that was my goal for a little bit. And my family had never applied to like college abroad before. They never like knew what the application process was like. They didn't know how to do it. So we kind of just went on a whim and applied to a bunch of arts high schools that had a similar process to to like Berkeley, like an application process, just like fully knowing that we were just like not gonna like make it, we were gonna get rejected. And that's what happened. We got rejected from every school I applied to in high school. And for one of them, I was just like, you know what? I don't know. I was probably just like pissed off as like a kid. I was like, what the fuck? Like, why does this keep happening to me? So I called one of them and I realized that I applied for a classical composition major by accident by submitting them beats. And I was like, oh, okay, obviously I got rejected. That doesn't make any sense. And then they were like, why don't you try like this major instead, which was like a major for a little bit of everything. And Eminem's producer was going to be a guest artist in that school for a bit, Luis Resto. So I was like, okay, this might be like something cool. I applied, surprisingly got in, and just kind of had to make a decision on a whim for a school that I applied to knowing I wouldn't get in, but accidentally ended up getting in now. So I had to make a decision like, okay, I'm like 14, 15 years old at the time, in 10th grade, high school. And I was like, should I make the move to just like go halfway across the world to like pursue music at a boarding high school where I think I was the only Indian over there. There were like no other brown people over there. So it was like, and it was in the middle of Michigan, middle of nowhere, Michigan. So I was like, okay, how badly do I want to do this? Because I feel like at that point I was still like on the fence about like, hey, do I really want to do this thing? Like originally started off from DJing, then it went to like production, then it kind of went back to like piano and stuff. Like what do I want to do? I kind of knew I wanted to do production, but like I wasn't really good at it. I had no practice and I was still using like a cracked version of Logic Pro 9 at the time, you know? So I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like when else am I going to have the opportunity to do something like this? And thankfully my parents were supportive about it. That was like the biggest like factor for me. So I did it. I was like, fuck it. Let me go try it out. I went over there. The first year was essentially just like adjusting and figuring out what I wanted to do. Then I changed my major to classical composition, not classical composition, my bad, jazz composition, because I was doing a lot of like, I was introduced to like the world of jazz. I was introduced to classical music from like just like this kid who just listened to EDM music and then just like had this like whole world expanded to them. Like jazz led me to hip hop led me to lo-fi. And it was just like so much artistic exposure at that age that I was just kind of like dumbfounded because I feel like I was so cocky as a kid. I was just like, oh, I'm like the only person who's doing like music, like, oh, I like, you know, did this thing, all of that. And then I go over there and I realize like I am definitely by far like the worst musician in like the crowd of like everybody over there. Because everybody else had been practicing from like, you know, the age of, I barely knew what I wanted to do. I just knew that like there was like this cool producer who I like knew his music and I wanted to like, you know, be cool with him or whatever. And I went there and so much of high school for me was just practicing piano. It was like 8 hours of music a day. We did like normal high school from like 9 a.m. to like noonish. So like math, English, like science. I took biology. That was really fun. And from like 12 to 6 was music. And then from 6 to 9 was practice. And then 10 was curfew. So every day for like 2 to 3 years, at least when I was in school, I was just grinding music. I was just practicing piano a ton, doing a lot of composition. I was kind of everywhere in the high school. Like I almost don't feel like I had a major because I was just like jumping between like production, jumping between like what we called contemporary piano and like jazz, like composition, like that whole world. So I was just trying to like figure out my place for like most of it. And that was my high school experience. And then COVID happened on the last year of my high school. So I didn't even get a chance to like do like the proper like graduation ceremony. Like my whole family was gonna come out for it. They had tickets. They like booked like hotel rooms and shit. And like, yeah, all of that like went to shit when COVID hit, like 2 months before graduation and like the final semester. Packed up everything, barely had a chance to say goodbye to friends because we thought it was just like an extended like spring break or something at the time, you know? Like we didn't realize how big the thing was gonna be. So moved all the way back to India with my grandpa in his little farmhouse. Thankfully not in the city because I had like chance to move around and everything. During the pandemic, 2020 was when I first started seeing any sort of success with like my music. That was like the first time I hit like a song that hit like million streams on Spotify. That was also when I was sending around a lot of piano samples to a lot of hip hop producers at the time. So at my grandpa's farmhouse, especially because it was the pandemic, Wi-Fi and electricity wasn't very reliable. So I couldn't really binge anything. Like I couldn't really watch YouTube. It was like 144p. At that point, it's not even like enjoyable. Netflix was always buffering. I could upload files overnight, but that was like kind of the only way. And we used to get hot water for a couple hours a day. So I used to shower, eat some food, and literally just like make music for the rest of the day. Because I had nothing else to do. There was like, not much to do in the first place. I'd switched to Ableton at that point, and I had a MIDI keyboard on me. So it was MIDI keyboard directly into my computer. No interface, nothing like that. Like I didn't even buy my first interface by that point. Literally just MIDI keyboard into my computer, and started making some beats and started sending a lot of piano samples to producers who wanted to get some original samples. That's where I met B-Side, who was like my first introduction, Lucas, who was my first introduction to like kind of like the lo-fi space. We made a lot of music together. That's when Mr. Käfer and Flitzensuppe, one Austrian and one German producer, put me on their Lo-Fi Girl album.
Wow.
And that's how I got introduced to Lo-Fi Girl and that whole space of like lo-fi. Then at that point, I was like already working on my debut album, just like grinding out music, not doing anything else. I'd applied to Berklee, I'd gotten in. So like my whole like dream that I had from the start was kind of like forming in front of me, and I didn't like know how it was happening because it's like very random, to be completely honest. It was like producer found me on Instagram. They asked me to send loops. That's how I got connected to those people. Then I sent more loops to his friends, and that's how I got into like the whole lo-fi space. And
wow.
I was doing my thing, got accepted to Berklee. I was like, okay, this is gonna be super cool. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna like be like cool and shit, and I'm gonna make a lot of music, and everything's gonna be perfect. And none of that ended up happening. I went to Berklee. It was cool, but like, especially because it was right after the pandemic kind of start to slow down, everything was just like restricted. There was like no social life realistically. Like I was in one dorm, and literally all of my friends were in another dorm, and we couldn't go to each other's dorms at the time because like, I don't know, it was fucking like COVID rules didn't like allow us to. So I used to like sneak up to my friend's dorm like once in a while and like never leave their house. Essentially, we just like literally leave to like shower and like come back or something like that. So I spent like most of my first year at Berklee in like one of my good friends' dorm rooms, and just like made beats. No MIDI keyboard, nothing, because I didn't have that on me in my friend's dorm room. I was just like programming beats, getting on like Zoom calls with like Soli had Tom C. Bumps and like those guys during like the pandemic, during like just after the pandemic a lot, and just tried to make like as much as I could, because I was like very depressed because I couldn't leave my friend's room essentially, and just like didn't have much to do apart from making music. So just did that. Went to New York and LA during that summer break when my first album was coming out, and kind of just had my life change. So all the music I made was like still in India. Like I didn't really make any music that I was happy with like putting out when I was at Berklee. I couldn't do it in the first place either because I was in a student visa instead of a work visa.
Right.
So my album that I had finished when I was still in India was starting to come out in July of 2021, right after my first semester at Berklee, or right before, I forget. That happened, and literally the album had 1 million streams in a day. It was like overnight, my life just like instantly just like transformed. I was like hanging out with like the cool lo-fi kids in New York. I got to meet one of the people who had the strongest musical influence on me personally, ASO, when I came to LA, because one of my good friends, Dylan, I was roommates with him at the time, and just like was going to sessions with him and was getting introduced to his friends at that time. And I feel like that was like the pivotal moment of my life so far, just like getting introduced to like Dylan's friends and him being such a sweet person and just like making me feel at home in LA, because I had been in New York and I had been in Boston at the time, in Berkeley, and I was just like, I hate this. I can't do anything. None of my friends are here. It feels like an obstacle to do music every time, and music was the only thing that was like keeping me sane at the time also, because there was like so much going on in the world. After the debut album came out and I like visited LA for the first time, I was just like, wow, the people who inspired me to make music in the first place, I'm hanging out with them now. Like, that's fucking crazy. That's like the craziest thing ever. This guy didn't know that I used to listen to his music in like 2014 on my little headphones in India, not knowing this world, and just like, and he just had no idea, and I was like in a room with him, just like low-key kind of freaking out, but like still just like loving the moment that I was in. And I was like, okay, after I went to LA that first time, I was like, okay, Berkeley makes zero sense for me. I can't work over here. I don't like my classes too much. The social life kind of sucks because of the pandemic. Everything just doesn't work. I'm paying a stupid amount of money to like be in the college in the first place, which I was paying out of pocket at the time, by the way, which just like fucking sucked. And wow. I was just like, I need to get out of here ASAP. So that's what I did. I worked on the visa and went home to India, like dropped out, went home to India for a bit. That's when Network hit me up also and signed me as an artist and got me on as an A&R at that time. They hit me up when I was still at Berkeley, and I was like, I think that was like that was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm getting label offers. I have a successful like debut album. I'm working with the people I've been wanting to work with for like the longest time. It's time to get out of here. So went back, took the job with Network, fully remote, stayed up like every night to just like do it like remotely from there. I think my day started at like 9 p.m. was just like on the opposite like time zone for most of it. Made music, worked on my resume, found lawyers to help me with like my work visa O1 process, and it was like a solid 9 months, and then I moved to LA, and yeah, so that was like my journey essentially.
Dude, that's crazy, because it sounds like everything happened like quickly. Everything kind of happened over the last 5 years?
Exactly. Like I feel like when I tell people how long I've been making music, like sure, I cracked Logic on my mom's computer like when I was like 12 or something, which was almost like 9 years ago now. But I really started making music in 2019 when I started releasing stuff, when I was like, you know, still in high school a little bit and still like living in India for most of it, and during the pandemic, like very, very recent. Like all of this has been in the last 3-4 years realistically.
For sure. One of the things that I'm interested in is like, so you said that you were one of the first people in your family to sort of go to school in another country, and especially so far away like the US. Yeah. And being so young, like you must have been what, 15, 16?
15, maybe, yeah.
15? So other than just staying productive and staying busy, essentially, like how did you sort of get through that, being away from family and stuff? Were you in contact with them a lot?
Yeah, I was in contact with them. I would like speak to them like maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. That's usually less than what like people in my high school used to like speak to their parents, like how often they used to speak with their parents. But I feel like I'm the type of person who's just in my own world like a lot of the time, you know? And high school was this like almost like magical place for me. It had like its ups, like very high highs, and its very low lows, but it was so weirdly wonderful and magical because all of a sudden everyone I used to hang out with was just exactly like me. Just wanted to do the art they wanted to do. Just like that was their entire life, you know? And some of the most talented and kind and wonderful people I met from the high school. It was crazy. It was like, it just felt like I belonged and I didn't belong in the same way and at the same time. Yeah. But I just loved it because I'd never had that experience before, really, you know? That was the first time where I could really just sit down and hone in on my craft and not have to worry about anything else. Like literally nothing else mattered. Didn't have to pay rent, didn't have to worry about food, didn't have to do anything. Like the only thing I needed to do was music. And it was so just like singular minded. And obviously with that like comes its own share of burnouts, because you're playing 8 hours a day. Obviously you're gonna get burnt out. Obviously like you're gonna feel like you suck because everybody else is also doing the same thing and is at the point that I was in exponentially better than what I was, because I came to it very late. And there were just like so much external factors that it felt like I was on top of the world and the world was on top of me, and like, you know, like both at the same time. And it was very weird. A lot of like mental and emotional turmoil at that time also, just like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, not really finding my place in like which major that I wanted to be in. I wanted to do production. I kind of knew that I wanted to do it, but like at a classical music boarding high school, that's what they were really known for. I was like kind of the only one doing that. And it was weird, but it was cool at the same time, and it was new and it was different. So I feel like the novelty of the situation just kind of kept me in the zone and kept me on track of what I wanted to do. But yeah, I definitely did miss family, and I definitely felt like separated from them. You know what I mean? Like it definitely felt like I was away from them. But in like its own way, I did find like my family in like the school itself. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. And like, it's crazy because you kind of bet on your own future at 15. You're just like, fuck it, I'm going music full, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that it worked out shows, first of all, your talent and stuff, but just like how hard you were working, you know? Like your first album, Ethereal Nights, was that at probably 50 million streams around there, 40 million?
Yeah. 50.
That's nuts, you know? The amount of people that don't even get 10,000. You know,
thanks, man.
Like, I think about that all the time too. Even for my stuff, is like, how is this even happening? You know what I mean?
Dude, I ask myself the same question every day. It's like I get to wake up and I get to do what I wanted to do every day. You know what I mean? And you kind of get desensitized with it if you're like just going at it and like living the life, and you're like, you really have to take a step back and realize what is happening. And I feel like so much of music, like, yes, definitely hard work and everything is such a big portion of it, but every day I look back at my journey and I have to keep reminding myself, and I have to keep thinking about just how incredibly lucky I got. Just how incredibly lucky I got. Having supportive parents who encouraged me to make music at a young age.
Yep.
That was the biggest thing. But like, apart from that, having the opportunity to go there in the first place, being annoyed enough with the high school that rejected me to call them and ask them why I got rejected, like that was some cocky shit, man. Like I wouldn't have done that. I was angry. I was like, you know, livid at that point, and like I was just like, why is nothing working? Like I thought the whole world was against me. Like there were so many little moments, there were so many little decisions that I made that I thought that was going to have like zero impact on my life, that the reason I'm here depends on that one singular moment. And so many times it happened, and I got lucky so many times that it's so hard to like comprehend how the universe just guided me to do the thing that I wanted to do, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize too, like even for people listening, having a very clear idea of what you want your future to be like and basing all of your decisions around that, whether intentional or not. It sounds like that's what you were doing as well. Like, maybe at 15 you probably weren't thinking about it that way, but like you wanted it so bad. Like I wouldn't have called the school. I would have just taken that for what it was, you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that it's still working out, and like, you know, now in the story of, you know, this episode and stuff, you're back in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, at least, like as we're speaking, pretty much since you guys did the beat camp at Network, since I've known you, this is the most into music I've seen you. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems like you're very into making music right now, you know?
Definitely.
Is that what it feels like right now?
Definitely. I feel like my life in the last like 2-ish years, from like when I went back to India to work on like music and the visa and like start like working properly, that was really possible because of Network coming in and signing me as an artist, but also getting me on as an A&R. I had helped a friend's label, a friend's like small New York lo-fi label, start up and help with like some strategy elements and stuff like that. So I had some label work experience, but I didn't really know what I was doing, in complete honesty. And when Samir and Terry got me on, I kind of hinted at that. I hope they got that, and I hope they knew that I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But they were kind enough to give me the opportunity to try and figure out what I wanted to make of the lo-fi space, and give me the trust to play it out the way I wanted to in the first place, and give me the courage to speak my opinion, and give me the courage to go for what I thought would make the space better. So I feel like I have always been doing music, but so much of like my move and my transition and everything was so relied on the A&R part of it, where I was still doing music, but oftentimes I was working on other people's music or helping with them with their vision, kind of taking the role of a more traditional producer, kind of setting up sessions and even producing some tracks for my artists and helping them with their creative vision. So I feel like I kind of took the focus away from me for a little bit and put it for people that I want to work with, which was such a cool opportunity, because I could work with people that I really wanted to work with, have the budget to do what I wanted to do, have the resources to do what I wanted to do, and still be creative at the same time. And I feel like I've definitely been making more music recently, and I've just noticed that it comes in waves for me. There are some points where I want to focus more on other people's music, and there are some points where I want to focus more on my own music. And recently, I've just been hanging out with my two friends, Eric and Dylan, Aso and Dylan, arguably two of the people that have helped me the most in my musical career so far, and who have been influenced by sonically so much that I've really been asking myself, like, what kind of artist do I want to be? What kind of musician do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be more than anything else? And I feel like I kind of came to the conclusion of putting the work in and doing it for the sake of doing it being more important than waiting to get inspired to do it, or waiting for the right moment, or feeling like it was like my calling to do so, you know? Because there are points where I'm going to feel uninspired. There are points where I'm not going to want to make music. But I feel like discipline is better than inspiration.
100%. And that's a very key point to get into people's head, because I'm guilty of, waiting for the spark. I'll go 3 months without even touching an instrument at all.
Yeah.
But just think about, even if you picked it up 4 times in those 3 months, you'd be more in the headspace to continue on when you finally did get that spark of, like,
definitely,
your masterpiece, hopefully, or whatever the fuck.
Exactly. And so much of discipline is not about the result. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not about what you get out of it. The point of discipline is to do it regardless,
Yeah.
And the consequence of that is positive and negative, the way you look at it, I guess. Like, the negative part of it is that if you're waiting for inspiration, at least when I used to wait on inspiration, if I used to finish a song, if I used to go through with it, and if I used to like want to work on it enough to finish it, at least in the start, I used to be happy with it. Like, I used to be proud of what I made, because the inspiration kind of leaded me to do the thing and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that started happening when I stopped kind of going off of it from inspiration and started going it from just like the practice or the ritual of doing it, was that so much of the music I just made sounded like trash, because I was just like, I don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like making it. I'm doing it because I told myself I would do it, kind of thing. Kind of making a ritual out of it. And that led to a couple of very interesting things. It kind of made me fall back in love with the process of the creation again, because I really didn't care at that point to release it or finish it. I just wanted to create at that point. I did not care about anything else, and you can probably see that in my like releases also. Like, I've been releasing way less music than what I used to, like, in the past at least. And I don't know, man. It just started making me better. It just started making me like more happy with what I was doing more consistently after I kind of trusted the process blindly, you know? Like I went in with the full intention and knowledge, or at least I told myself that I just don't want to care about the result at all. Like oftentimes I didn't even like export the files that I was doing. Oftentimes I ended up deleting a lot of stuff that I was doing, but I told myself I would just like do it every day. And that led me to like a lot of cool things, you know, like again, the question of like the type of artist I want to be, like the type of person I want to be. You and Eric actually shared this composer. Maybe it was Ben who shared it in like the ambient group chat. It was Michiru Ayoma, the composer who was releasing an album every day for 5 years.
Yeah.
That blew my mind, man. That was like, at that point, I was like, that's the type of artist I want to be. Like maybe not like directly. Like I don't want to be the person who's posting an album every day for 5 years. I think that's too much for me. Personally, I can't do it. I don't know how he does it. Crazy respect to him. I can't do it myself. But I love the philosophy of doing the art for the sake of the art rather than for the result of it.
Yeah.
And Eric had done a similar challenge. He had posted on his Instagram, not music related, but visual art related. He used to post a sketch every day for a year. He told himself he would do it, and he did it. And I was like, that's like crazy. Like the amount of dedication that took, like the amount of like self-control that took. Like the fact that you had enough trust in yourself more than anybody else to be like, hey, do I have the potential or do I trust myself enough to do it for a year first? And second, do I trust myself enough to hold myself accountable to do it for the year? If I were to do that challenge maybe 3-4 years ago, I feel like I would get really hyped and I would be like, oh my God, yes, let's do it. Like, this is so cool. This is a cool concept. Like, I want to force myself to do it. Maybe I would go like 2 weeks doing it. Third week, I would just stop. And in a year, I wouldn't even remember that I started the challenge in the first place, you know? And kind of being able to hold myself up to like what I tell myself I would do. And that took like two things. That took like understanding myself a little bit better also. It took like knowing that, hey, can I realistically do this? And I can't do 5 years. I can't do 5 years. You know what I mean? Like I can't do everyday album for 5 years. But I can do an album in one day. I know I can do that. Or at least I know that I think I can do that. So, so I did it. Yeah. And that was the most rewarding project of the year, I think.
Okay, yeah, so this is a perfect segue. So, yeah, Picture Frames. I don't know if you want to even mention the title, actually.
Yeah, but, Picture Frames. Let's go. Yeah.
I have so many questions about this because, first of all, each track is so unique because you just let go of... It feels like you let go of perfection in a way. Like you're letting the Super 8 camera come through the audio recording, which actually adds an extremely like nostalgic vibe maybe. And like I have written down here, like Picture Frames is the perfect title for this because it feels like it's just snippets into everyday kind of, you know,
exactly.
Kind of thing, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I'm so intrigued though, how much planning went into this because I cannot imagine how many. It's 12 tracks or 15 tracks? 12.
So 11 new tracks.
11.
The 12th track is like a slowed down version of one of the tracks, which sounded cool, which we just put on the playlist. But yeah.
So yeah, it must be planned out a little bit, right? You had to know what you were going to play, or is it improvisation?
Zero planning whatsoever. Really? I planned out how I wanted to do it. I didn't plan out what I wanted to do. So let me backtrack a little bit. I guess it'll be cool for the viewers to know like the concept of Picture Frames and how it came through before like talking about like the project and how I did it. But Picture Frames is an idea I had earlier on this year. It was still like when I was like trying to figure out like who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, what kind of music I wanted to make. One of the reasons I got into lo-fi in the first place was because I love the imperfections of it, you know? Like so much of what I listen to, at least at the time, like EDM music, you know, it's perfected. It's like every kick is perfect. It's all quantized. Everything is like maxed out loudness-wise. And that's not bad. That's definitely a sound that they went for and they did it really well. And I was a big fan of that. But on the complete opposite side of it, there was lo-fi, which was like shitty cassette recorded sounds that just felt good. That had these drums that were kind of wonky, that weren't even in time really. And it was weird when, at least on the production side, when I was just like, okay, from everything being perfectly lined up to now nothing being lined up at all, really. You know, that first like spark kind of that led me down in like the lo-fi world kind of resonated with me a lot about how much beauty there is in imperfection, how much beauty there is in like day-to-day life and stuff like that. I know like Japanese like pottery makers, they like purposely like dent and like break their pots because perfection is not considered pleasant in a lot of ways to them. And I find that so interesting because you want to be perfect, you know, like you think of a perfect version of something when you picture it in your head. You think of a song that you want to make, at least if you have an idea, the perfect version of it already exists in your head. You know what I mean? Like the perfect version of things already exist. But when you actually do them, you always feel, at least I always felt, it was a lesser version of the idea that I had in my mind, at least when I was starting off. Or it always felt like it wasn't like perfect enough. It wasn't like, not that it wasn't good enough, but it wasn't perfect enough.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me down to like picture frames and why I wanted to do it in the first place. The starting concept, like the core of it really started out with me hitting record whenever I wanted to make music and playing something. 0 edits, 0 takes. I would probably EQ it like at the end, but like I wouldn't change the contents that I recorded.
Yeah.
And each song title would be named after the exact timestamp that it was recorded in, because I wanted it to be capturing a memory in like a perfect way, you know, like just hitting record and then letting it be, like not going into edit, not going in to overproduce it. One of the biggest problems I had, at least in my production journey, has been overproducing stuff. Mm-hmm. The first song I finished because my computer crashed and I didn't know when to stop working on it, you know, and that track took me like 2 years to make because I always thought that the version I had in my head was better than the version I had in my DAW, and I always chased to get it as close, and it never did. It actively got worse after a certain amount of time. I just didn't know how to like fix it. So one of the things I told myself was I need to learn how to let go a lot better. I need to be a little bit bolder with the decisions I make. Either hit delete or let it be. You know, that was the philosophy I wanted to like get into. And that was the birth of picture frames, you know. The first concept was, here, let me find it in my files. The album that I just recorded was a newer iteration of the same concept.
Okay.
But if I go back to picture frames, the first one I can see is July 4th. That was the first time I hit record and titled a song after the timestamp and didn't touch it. And that was just solo piano. Most of the songs I did from July to November that I just have sitting on my computer that I'm not going to really do anything with are just solo piano tracks where I hit record, let the noise come in from wherever. There were helicopters flying in some of them. There's a whole ass conversation my friend is having with another friend in one of them.
I love that. I love it.
There was one I recorded in like a hurricane in LA. It wasn't really a hurricane. It was just raining, but like rain sounds were recorded. There were some I recorded at 3 a.m. There were some I recorded at 7 p.m. Just like scattered throughout the day whenever I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to record it. So it kind of became a journal for me, you know? It kind of became like a musical journal for me. And that kind of led me to like the point of like film and like the visual medium of it is so integrated and feels so true to like my original concept with picture frames, where the point is to capture a moment in time. That's what film is, you know? Like you can't really... There's no MIDI in film, you know what I mean? Like you can't really add an instrument like later on or anything. Like what you get is what you get, really. And if you want to take it a step further, if you record with like an analog camera, like a Super 8 or something, what you get is what you get. You don't even know what you're gonna see until after it's developed, you know?
Exactly.
Like it's about the moment, and that's it. Like you're like when you're making music or when you're making film directly onto tape or directly onto Super 8 or using film cameras or anything like that, that's a perfect example of it not being about the end product, because you don't even know what the end product is going to look like most of the time.
100%. And with all these, letting go of perfection almost makes it perfect, at least to me in a way, as a fan of ambient music, lowercase music, all this stuff. But there are a couple tracks on this one in particular when you recorded 2 days ago on the 26th, right after Christmas, where there are layers. So how are you doing all of this live? Were other people playing with you?
Yes. So it was me and Eric. It was originally just going to be me, actually. It was just going to be me. I was telling Eric about it. And I just kind of jokingly said to him, like, hey, you should just come engineer. And he gave like the most like serious reply. He was just like, yeah, I'll do it. And I was like, wait a minute, I guess this isn't really a joke anymore. And I was like, get your tape machine, get all these equipment, get all of your cool mics, get like everything you can bring. I just wanted to deck this room out into whatever. He definitely didn't listen to me. He just got his tape machine and his mixer, which is definitely more than enough. Ellis, one of our friends, had built me a mic, which we're using actually to record this interview with right now, which we used. We used a vintage Japanese mic from the 1940s. So much Japan references today for some reason, but maybe it wasn't a Japanese mic actually. It was a mic from somewhere in Asia that I found on eBay for $20 that I used from like the 1940s or 1960s. I used my OP1, I used my upright piano, I used all these things and I had them ready to record. And some were done on loops, so I had a looper pedal going. Some were done as one take overdubs. That was like the max I was willing to push it, where I recorded a layer, and let's say I wanted like a soft piano thing, but I wanted like a chord in there which was like unfelted. I would play the same thing over in my ears and have one take to get like perfectly on top, because we were recording direct to tape, right? We can't undo. Yeah. We can't do undo anything. So any takes that I did, even though there were layers, they were all done in one take.
Wow. There's a specific track that I really loved. I think actually it's pretty much as far as I got through it before this call. But track 6, which was done at 3:34 p.m. And you're like singing the melody with the piano. Dude, I was like, that's next level. Like, it's just, I just love when people are just humming the notes as they're trying to play the piano. You know what I mean? Like, there's something so nice about it.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a track on there that you have as like a favorite?
You know, after listening back to the project, like there were so many moments where I'm just like, I can't believe I did this, you know? Again, the thing of like how my life has led me to like these decisions that I had to make kind of on the go. And weirdly enough, everything just working out. Like how lucky I had to be to like for that to happen. Like that just happened again when I recorded picture frames. There were moments like a lot of the times, like when we had video in, like we had like a clap that we set to like line up the audio and the video at the end. For so many of the songs, we just forgot to record that. And like, so like we just started the song like halfway through. So the video team is going to have like a harder time to like put it together and stuff like that. But like, so those were the parts, I guess, that didn't like work out. And there were some parts where we forgot to record a mic or something like that. And we just had to work with what we got. But on the opposite side, there were so many moments that just worked out. And it's not like I didn't make mistakes. I made so many mistakes, and you can hear it very evidently in there. You can hear me like creaking around. There are moments where my voice is on tape where I'm like, okay, cut or whatever, or like pause or whatever, or like let's like there was one song where I'm like, let's end on the one chord. Like the audience didn't have to hear that, you know what I mean? But it got picked up by the mic and it got printed on tape, and that's just what I got. So there were so many mistakes in there, but the sonics, the feel, the emotion that I had, I feel like got translated so well that I couldn't have hoped for anything better. I'm so happy with the project, at least how it sounds.
Yeah, and listening to it too, I was kind of blown away because as you've been doing more of this like piano stuff and ambient stuff, you've been sending demos over to me, and they've all been, as I've been telling you, really, really good. Like,
thanks, man.
Unbelievably good. I'm like, holy shit.
I really appreciate that.
But this as a whole project is like next level in a way, you know, like it's perfect to me. Like I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. I haven't been able to.
Come out to LA for a week. We'll do it.
There you go. I will. that would actually be really sick. But yeah, I don't know. It's a great album, and I kind of lost my train of thought there. But
thanks, man. I appreciate it. It was a really fun project, and I think it kind of reinforced like my philosophy that I had been thinking about, like the type of artist I want to be, the type of person I want to be, just being in the moment with it, just like letting go of the perfection. This project for me has been for myself more than the art. And like that's such a fucking cringe, corny ass thing to say.
No,
like,
cool.
This is for myself more than anybody else. But like, I feel like it's true, It's like, believe me, I would have gone back and edited some things if I could. You know what I mean? Like, there were some moments where like, if I was working on like making the thing that I wanted to make, that was in my head, I would have gone back, re-recorded a take. I would have gone back, I would have mixed something different. We just didn't have the time. We had to make an album in a day. I told myself I would do it, I told myself I would do it, and I told myself that I would listen to what I told myself I would do. I would hold my own word to a certain president and make sure that I do the thing that I told myself I would do.
100%, yeah.
And part of making an album in a day was going to be that I can't focus on everything. The planning side of it, the first question that you asked me, like what the planning meant, we did a sound check. We made sure all the mics were working, and we made sure all the videos were working. That's it. We didn't do anything else. And then we hit record, and whatever came out, came out.
Amazing. So, I mean, I guess this leads on to like, and I'm sure you haven't concreted things, but so this leads on to the question of sort of your philosophy on releasing stuff, especially with a project like this. I'm sure you have the urge to just release it all at once, but have you thought about this, or even actually on which alias? Because you have multiple, like what are the plans here if you want to make this public or not? I'm sure everything's not concrete, but
definitely.
So have you thought about this much?
A little bit, not too much. I feel like I'm a firm believer of like letting go, as I said, and letting go, at least in the point of view of release, of like putting out music, is either deleting it, like making the active decision to delete it, or putting it in a folder where I'm not going to touch it again, or telling myself it's done and putting it out in the world. There's no middle ground for me. I don't want to be in a position where I'm holding on to stuff or sitting on music for a while. Because two things are going to happen if I do that. One, I'm not going to like the music anymore because I'm going to make either better stuff or different stuff that I think is different from what I've been making. Or it's going to get lost and it's never going to come out. So I wanted to put myself in the position of making that decision, not worried about the results of it. Like there's probably a song that I've like deleted or put in a folder that I'm not going to touch again, which probably would have been a song that might have been successful, or might have been a thing that like would have done good things for me. You know what I mean? Like there's probably a song there's probably a thing that I did that made it so that it hurt me in my musical career, if you think of it that way. But the decision was almost not about that. The decision was about being decisive enough and trusting myself enough to make like an intuitive decision on that. So this is a project I feel like I'm gonna release, and I'm a big alias person because I feel like it gives an outlet for different projects to be interpreted in different ways while simultaneously being disconnected from me. Like some music is about me. Some music is tied to me. It's tied to the person that I am. I want to put my name on it front and center. I want to like put it out there. And there's just some music that is above me. Like I don't even matter in that situation. Like I want the music to be perceived in a way where it doesn't matter who made it, but it can stand enough on its own. And I feel like this might be one of those projects where I'm going to create a new alias for it. It's going to be an alias called Picture Frames, and every single song that I release on that alias has to be a timestamp. Like the title of it has to be a timestamp. And I just want it to be a journal or like a diary entry for me over the next 5 years of me just putting out music, to be like, hey, this is a song that I made in exactly this moment of time, and this is it.
That's amazing. Yeah. I could definitely see that working. A question that I've had for a long time actually for you is, and it sounds like you've kind of already answered it, but like how you kind of value how music does. Because obviously we've already talked about your first album did exponentially well because of the label it was put out on, but also how accessible the music was. When you make an album like this, kind of knowing it's not going to get millions of streams, right? There's just not the audience unless, I mean, there's the audience. It's a little bit harder. It is possible for this one to get millions of streams. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Do you, in hindsight, do you end up valuing the music you make less because it gets less plays and stuff? Or have you found a way to get sort of past that? Because it's really easy to get into that mindset, right?
Very much so. Like, I feel like there used to be a point, especially when I wasn't doing it full time, when I wanted to do it full time, when the money part of it was a deciding factor of if I was doing it full time or not. I cared about it a lot. A lot of my mood on the day that a lot of my mood was impacted on how many streams I got that day. And it was a very toxic cycle of like, yo, the song was playlisted, like it did well, like that puts me in a good mood. Oh, the song didn't do as well, like that didn't put me in as good of a mood. And it was a thing for a bit and it was very real. But I feel like in the position that I am in, it's such a privileged position because I'm doing the thing. I'm doing music full time. This is my job. I don't have to worry about money from certain projects. You know, I'm in the position where I don't have to worry about that. And it's such a privilege to be on the other side because I feel like I wasn't in that position when I was worried about like the financials in the music. You know what I mean? Like when I'm worried about how good the music has to do when I didn't get any success from the music, it was a very one track mind where it was like, the music is good because it did well, not because like I wanted to. Now it's like, I have a very selfish view on like music, you know, like most of the stuff that I think is my best music hasn't streamed like the best. And I don't feel any way around it. Like, yeah, obviously, I guess it sucks a little bit that like, you know, people didn't hear it, but like, if I wanted people to listen to like a particular type of music, I would, if I wanted to go into music with the intention of it being able to reach as many people as possible, I would not be making that music in the first place anyways, you know? True. Like, I think it took taking like a selfish mindset of it and being like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not even worried about anything else. I'm just worried about how true I can be to the concept that I wanted to get at. And that meant success to me, at least with a project like this, right? Where success to me was how accurately and true can I stick to the original plan that I had. Like there were moments where I was like, at least the first like couple tracks that I recorded or like couple tracks on the record where I was like, you know what? From a listener's perspective, I don't know if I like these tracks as much. Like, I don't know how much I want to be like, this is the thing. Or like, I wanted to like thinking of it from the business point of view, I was like, there are some tracks that stand out so well and they just sound incredible that needs to be the first track. That when people click play on it, like that needs to be the first impression of it. But then I realized that like the track list was going to get messed up because the track recorded at like 11 p.m. was going to be first before the track recorded at 9 a.m. And I was like, is that the point of picture frames? I was like, I don't think that's the point of picture frames. I feel like the point of picture frames is to have it be painfully true to the concept. That's the point of it, you know? Like telling myself I would do it and doing it for the sake of doing it because I told myself I would do it. Hell yeah. And I think I can't touch it anymore now. You know what I mean? Like, I think I can't do it. I can't put it in a way where it would sacrifice the purpose of why I created the project in the first place. That very much does not mean that it can't do well. I think personally it can do very well. And the reason I think is because the visuals we got look so beautiful. The music we got so beautiful. Like I was thinking about, I feel like after the music is done, I allow my business brain to get in a little bit. And pitching it as like an ambient tiny desk, you know what I mean? Like, I think it has a good shot to be successful personally, just because of how true it is to the art form. And I do agree that I don't think it's gonna get to a point where a million people. I'm not going to get like a million monthly listeners or something like that. But it is going to get a point to where people who fuck with it are going to fuck with it and are going to listen to it and are going to support it for a long amount of time. And I almost value that more than anything else. And I think even from a business point of view, that means more, because that's going to mean that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it's going to be more relevant than a project that I made where I knew that, oh, it was going to get on a playlist. I made it for a specific purpose. It got on a playlist. Cool. I got 1 million streams. Cool. Awesome. And then gets kicked out of a playlist, and I don't think of that song ever again. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And that's something that I was going to mention too, is I could see this type of project living a longer lifespan, I guess, when you look at certain metrics or whatever, than
True.
other tracks. Like, you know, me and you have both gotten put on huge playlists, gotten millions of views, and then taken off and only like 50 streams a day at the most.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, people actually didn't like that song. It's not going to live very long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not even to say that 50 people liking a song isn't valuable. That's not what I'm getting at.
Of course.
I'm going back on my word, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. Especially as people who are doing this full time, right? Like, so much of our longevity, so much of us being able to do what we're doing tomorrow depends on how many people listen to it. It's a very direct correlation. But I feel like, at least thinking about the projects like financially, I've been thinking about it in a different way. Like, I think one of the other reasons that I wanted to make like so many aliases is just to have music out in the world. And I want to get to a point where I'm confident enough in myself to let go of more music, because I'm making the music, you know what I mean? It's just sitting on my computer a lot of the time, or it's getting deleted, and that's like a decision that I make. But I feel like relying on one song to do 5 million streams a month is too much pressure for one song to have. 100%. And I feel like if we're trying to do this as a career and so much of it depends on one song, which is often what ends up happening in TikTok viral moments, for example. Like, yeah, you get a lot of money, or you get a lot of fame, you get a lot of eyeballs on you, you get all of these things which help your career out a lot. But I think it hurts you in ways that people don't immediately think of, because then all of a sudden, all of your income is dependent on one song. All of a sudden, people just know you for one thing. All of a sudden, like, the perception of what this is about gets changed to one thing. Also, if you get one song that like outperformed every other song, subconsciously, if you're in a position where you need to make something that allows you to do this tomorrow, you're going to try to mimic it to a certain extent. Even if you're not trying to do it intentionally, like, it's going to happen because of the position that you're in. And I think so much of how I want to make music is not to have that one song, but to have a discography that even streams 50 or 100 streams a month, right? Or 100 streams a day. Now imagine if you're doing like 100 streams a day and you have a catalog of, say, 10,000 songs, for example, by the time you're like 30, 40 years old. Now, 10,000, maybe 10,000 is a lot, but like 1,000 times 100, like you have 1,000 songs out and you're just getting 100 streams on it every day. That's 100,000 streams a day that you're getting.
Yeah.
And over a month, 100,000, my math is so bad, dude. 100,000 times 30 is 3 million. 3 million is 12 grand a month.
Enough to live off of. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, I would be happy if I was getting 12 grand a month. You know what I mean? Like that's the position that I want to get in, where I'm not worried about making a thing every day for that monetary success, but to bringing my baseline high enough to where I can just sustain a living making music when I want to. That's the goal for me.
I really believe that's the way to go. And not only in terms of like, you know, building that baseline, like you say, making it more stable, because, you know, when you are relying on one song on editorial, it can literally go to zero the next day. Yeah. You have no control. But making that stable, but also the fan connection. If you slowly build the fans over years, you know, the connection there, in my opinion,
much deeper.
Much deeper, right? And they stick around for longer, rather than being like a viral moment where the people who latch onto the viral moments will also latch onto the next viral moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then what do you do? I don't know.
Exactly.
Then you're screwed.
I feel like so many musicians that I talk to who have had that viral moment, who were balling for a while, who were on top of the world, the come down of it from them finding the next moment and moving on, like that experience, at least in the human mind, is so taxing. It feels so weird in a lot of ways, where all the eyes are on you, everything is about you, everything is held on to such a high extent. Money is not a problem. People know who you are. You get respect. You get all the things that society tells you are good things to have, and all the things to a certain extent that you want. You have all of that, and then it goes away.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that the turmoil that I've seen people face internally when that happens is crazy. Looking at it from the outside perspective, it affects people a lot. It's like a lot of people who go on tours, who go on like sold out international tours, I feel like tell me the same thing, where every night there are 10,000 people who are screaming your name at the top of their lungs every night. And then it just stops, and it's such a mind fuck, you know? And that's unfortunately just how like music is. And in the history of the universe, there is a moment in time where you might be relevant, and there's a moment in time where nobody's going to remember who you are. That's just like even like a gazillion years from now, when the sun collapses into the earth, nobody's going to know who Taylor Swift is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
And I don't know where I'm going with it, but I guess like that big switch really fucks up brains from the people I've seen that happen to.
Yeah. Which is what, exactly why, the slow build and even leveling off. Like what's the saying? Like 1,000 super strong fans is enough to sustain your living, or whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a much easier way to look at it than hoping for 10 million monthly listeners, which can go away. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
With all that, so 2024 is coming up. Other than picture frames, is there anything you're really looking forward to? Anything you got planned in the world of Scayos, Ornithology, or B9?
Very much so. I am putting out at least 2 piano albums, which is going to be cool. Yeah. Piano and ambient albums on B9, which is going to be really cool. One which is like more of like a solo piano study, and one which is a little bit more having fun with ambient stuff. I'm also working on a record with sitarist Rishabh Sharma and incredible finger drumming blender artist Roho.
Oh yeah.
And man, that album excites me every time I think about it, because for a little bit of context, Rishabh is the last disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar, who is considered one of the most well-regarded sitarists in the world. Unfortunately, he's not alive anymore, but his legacy lives on within Rishabh. And him trusting Rohan and I to kind of produce his record and work on this like mega collaborative record that kind of takes Indian classical music and hip-hop music and kind of putting that together is going to be a record that hasn't really been done in the history of like sitar music, really, or the history of Indian classical music for that matter. And doing it in a way that uplifts like brown voices and is so ambitious and collaborative, just like sounds so good to me and feels so good to me. Like I'm literally going to record pianos for it like later today. I just got like files from it, but that's one of the projects I'm most excited about. I think the collaborators we're going to get, I don't want to spoil it too much, but the collaborators that we're going to get on it and the scale of it is going to be very, very cool. And I think it's going to be one for the history books for sure.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm excited about that one a lot. I've had the honor of reinterpreting works of Chet Baker.
Yes.
I have remixed 2 of his recordings in more of like a beat-centric way, kind of like flipping them as like samples and having a little bit of fun with them. The 3rd remix of that is going to come out later next year, which is going to be fun. And Yeah, that's kind of that's the big stuff, I guess, that I'm excited for.
Amazing. I'm really excited for that. And anybody who's listening, make sure to, keep your eye on Shaan for all this stuff. I mean, I really appreciate you coming on to this. And
Thanks for having me,
we've
man.
kind of passed the hour mark, so I'm like trying to cut it because
Damn, it's been an hour
I have so
already.
many. Yeah, I have so many more questions, so I'm gonna have to get you back on because I want to do deep dives into sunken thoughts and whatever happens. Like,
Definitely.
I think those are such important projects. There's just stuff that we have to talk about for that, but that'll be for the next episode.
I want to interview you for the next episode. Also, I want to learn more about like notes and how that happened and how you got your surprise. Like, yeah.
Oh man, I can already tell you right now, just real quick. Notes was done the night before I put it out.
No fucking
for
way,
piano
dude.
day.
Wow.
Not even a real piano, just on MIDI, and it was just like random sequences. And because I didn't have a track for piano day in like 2016, 2017.
Nice.
And that's how it always happens, isn't it? The songs you least expect are the ones that end up with 50 million streams for no reason at all. It's crazy.
I love it though. I love it. I feel like that, like a lot of the Alaskan tape sound can be summed up by like notes. At least when I first discovered your music, like I know that like a lot of the times like it's the songs that are most popular the artists don't like and feel least connected from in a lot of ways and all of that. But I feel like it's done such a good job of summing up the sound and getting that feeling right that Notes was my first discovery into Alaskan tapes. Wow. That set up, I'm guessing it's that way for like a lot of new listeners. I'm guessing like Notes was the song that really made them aware of you in the first place. But
yeah,
it really set up like every listen after that, like to Tend a Garden also, right? Like listening to that with Notes as my first exposure to it gave me like the craziest like feeling ever, man. Like one of my favorite ambient albums of the year for sure. Like,
oh dude, I appreciate that.
Beautiful, man.
One of the interesting things about Notes too is it didn't even pick up, I think before 2021 or 2020 it had under 50,000 streams. For the first 3 years of its life it didn't do anything, and I forgot about it, and then all of a sudden it is what it is now, which just goes to show as well, like anything, everybody's always obsessed with releasing new music, but songs do come back alive sometimes, and
Definitely.
it's when you least expect it, it's when you count it out. But it's everything's just random.
It's about letting go, man. It's about letting go. If you wouldn't have released it, it wouldn't have happened. If you wouldn't have made the decision to let it go, none of it would have happened. And I feel like that's like kind of what I've been wanting to do with my own music also. Sorry to continue that rant, but like...
No, it's all good. No.
Yeah, it's like... It's not mine anymore. Like once I finish it, I truly believe that the music that I made is not mine.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such like a... Like there's ego in saying that the music is yours. Because...
Yeah.
You are, or in your tastes are such an amalgamation of everything else you've heard, and you're building on the legacy of artists that have already done it to a certain extent before. And it's your job to put it in new different combinations and present it the way that you like it. But I feel like it's such like a selfish thing to be like, hey, this is my music, this is mine, like, I don't know. I don't want it to be mine. I want to let it go. So, yeah.
I think I had the same thoughts for a long time until I started getting really, I guess proud is the right word, proud of my music.
Mm-hmm.
And then that ego did come in, and it still is there for sure for me. Like,
fair.
My older songs, sure. If they're the public, but
right.
Nah, Who Tends the Garden is mine.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. I mean, that's not to say that you can't be proud of the music, right? Like, I'm so proud of Picture Frames,
sure. True.
And I'm proud of like a lot of other music that I've made. And yeah. But I guess I kind of say it's not mine. Bro, I'm definitely making you like late for whatever you have next, but like...
No, we got a session
I guess,
next.
Yeah, we got a session next, but yeah. I guess like I mean it in the way of like, it's not mine as in I don't have control over how other people perceive it.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You
Yeah,
know?
of course.
Like,
Yeah. There's no
like I feel like,
expectation there. Yeah.
exactly. Like I feel like when I hold on to music, it's because of not the fear, but because of my knowledge that people are going to perceive it. That's the reason I'm not letting go. Otherwise, like, treat Spotify as like a Dropbox. Treat Spotify as a SoundCloud. Just put whatever you make, just put it out there. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I feel like that's the highest form of artistry to a certain point, where you're not worried about curating. You're just creating. You know, it's other people's jobs to curate.
True.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really fresh take, I think, because people are so particular with the art that they make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to sort of let it go and be the listeners, give the listeners the opportunity to do what they want with it in terms of curation.
Yeah. Or how they
really
want to
cool.
consume it, you know?
Or
like,
how they want to consume it, yeah.
Because I feel like the Bollywood world is very good at that, because a lot of the songs that pop off are remixes with other songs. Like, that's what pops off. The song doesn't pop off, the remix pops off. And the remix was made by some kid who probably downloaded it from YouTube to MP3, put it in FL Studio, put like a kick behind it and just call it you know what I mean? Like, that's probably what happened. I don't know how much intention was put behind it. I can't really say, but that's what it feels like. And it feels so organic and authentic, to where a person put two songs together because they were like, you know what, I like it this way, even though the artist had nothing to do with it, and they let it go, and it is what it is. And I think that's so beautiful. Same with Alex G. Alex G has so much unreleased music out in the world, and so much of it is not tied to his alias, and he is well within his rights to be like, I don't want to associate myself with this music because I'm not proud of it. I think that's a very valid statement to make. But I think it's cool as fuck of him to let people do whatever they want with the music that he has that's unreleased. Like, there's so many fake Alex G profiles out there. There's so much unreleased Alex G music on TikTok that people are just keeping alive because they like it. And him being brave enough to be like, as an artist, I don't think this lines up with who I am, but y'all can have it. It's not mine anymore. You know? Being able to like say that, I think that's beautiful. I think that's so cool.
You know, I really do think that's, you know, back when you started, and I started technically, you know, in the rise of EDM or whatever, whenever that was coming up, and lo-fi in general. I feel like that's how it all started too, was just like allowing these remixes and people to express themselves through your music.
Totally. Sampling, that's how hip-hop started, you know? Like,
sampling. It raises the whole genre, you know what I'm saying? It makes it this, like an ecosystem instead of just like your artistry or whatever, you know?
And when when you allow a song to be sampled, it's not yours anymore. Like, the song that, let's say there's a song you make and there's another song that samples a song that you made. You didn't make the song that sampled you. You know what I mean? It was made by somebody else. It couldn't have existed if you wouldn't have done the thing that you did. But like, that's not your music. Like, you let go of your ego, your possession over the music, to allow it to be interpreted by somebody else. And I feel like so much beautiful music is made that way.
I'm sure you probably have the same thing, but in conversations like this, for me, my music business brain versus my artistic brain, I guess, are like screaming at each other, like, but then what about this and what about that? It's like, you know, the artistic side is just like, let it go, let it be what it is. But then the business side is like, well, who owns what? What about the royalties?
So true. You know, like I was thinking about that very much so. And I was thinking about how inaccessible music is to make if you want to sample something. And how much of a privilege it is to sample something in the first place and be able to do that. Like, I've heard stories from people who've been working with big artists like Drake, Kanye, like all those guys, and they aren't able to release a song that is a song that they want to release because the sample owner doesn't want it to be released, or they want 99% of the master, or some, like, you know, like bold things like that, which obviously they're very well within their rights to ask for that. And I think as an artist, you definitely have control over that. But I think I don't want to be that type of artist.
For sure.
And
yeah, and I can agree with that.
I was even thinking about going as far as being like, with certain projects like Picture Frames maybe, or one of the upcoming B9 albums, like an ambient album, to publicly make it known that, especially if you're not signed to a major label, just have it like free and clear. You don't even have to ask me, just do whatever you want with it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that just with stems and in general with whole albums before. The only reason I haven't done it is just because it's a lot of work. Really.
Exactly.
Like,
and like YouTube copyright stuff and like more in the business
Yeah.
stuff, I guess, needs to be like figured out. But I feel like as a concept, making music with not the intention, but allowing others to interpret it and allowing others to use them in their own way, I think is a brave move, and it's a cool thing to be able to do if you want to do it. Obviously, there's some songs where I'm gonna be like, don't you fucking sample that before you talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna allow you to like do it for free or whatever. But I want to live in a world where more music is made with the intention of sharing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or being interpreted some way. But yeah,
I
that's
like
the
that.
end of my rant. But yeah.
That's a good ending right there, I
Yeah.
think. All right, man. Yeah, I seriously appreciate you being on this.
Dude, thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of We All Speak in Poems. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I would appreciate if you went and listened to some of Shaan's music as Scayos, Ornithology, or B9. We'd also appreciate if you gave this episode a like, a thumbs up, a follow, whatever is appropriate on the platform of your choice. And we'll see you in the next one.